As intimidating as talking to our peers and the amount of knowledge in this room. I'd like to pay my respects to Uncle Lewis, Gunner elders past and present, for welcoming us onto this land. I want to gun through an awful lot of stuff actually in my 10 minutes. If someone is keeping time, please do tell me when I'm a minute up, because part of what I want to do, I guess, is essentially I'm presenting a bit of research that ATYP has done. That's the end of it, but I kind of want to set a context for why we've come to this kind of research and what we hope it will do. There's a lot of people here I don't know, so for you that don't know me, my name is Fraser Corfield. I started professionally in Brisbane in the 90s. I was in independent theatre at 24. I was very lucky and got resident assistant director of Le Boite Theatre, and then was associate director of Le Boite Theatre in Brisbane for 4 years in my mid-20s. When that came to an end, I was just interested in running a company. The only company that would give a 27-year-old a gong was a youth theatre. So I actually moved 260 k's up the road to here and took over Riverland Youth Theatre for 2 years. It was a transformational experience for me and gave me an extraordinary experience at kind of community engagement, youth arts. Changed my life. Spent a lot of time in this building talking to a lot of interesting people. Went overseas, came back, ran Backbone Youth Arts for 4 years, then in 2009 moved to ATYP and have been there for 9 years. So I've been in youth theatre now for 17 years. So some stats, a lot of you already know these, but I'm going to run through them really fast. So over the last 10 years, and I think one of the things, picking up on Kate's thing, is we need to be a little bit careful that we blame everything that's happening on youth arts on Brandis, because it's a bigger story than that, and we are going to get absolutely in positivity, but I just want to kind of put things into context. So 2007, 21 funded youth theatre companies in Australia. 2015, that shrunk to 14 companies, 12 of them funded through the Youth Program Fund, 2 others, ATYP and PACT. PACT redefined itself as not being youth arts, which leaves ATYP. Last year, 1 funded youth theatre company in Australia, ATYP. Now there's 5. There's 3 of us in Sydney, Powerhouse Youth Theatre, ATYP and Shopfront. There's St Martin's doing magic work in Melbourne, and Australia's second largest youth arts company, Corrugated Iron, in Darwin. The rest are struggling on project funding, as we know. During that time, we had a couple of key losses. One of the biggest ones was Lowdown magazine, which was this amazing publication that documented, reviewed and profiled the work of theatre for young audiences and youth engagement projects around the country. That got defunded in the Make It New initiative in 2008. By 2011, I think Jane's here, 2011, 2012, it had closed its doors. Young People in the Arts Australia and ATYP both put on notice by the key orgs in 2011. ATYP regrouped and retained its funding, WIPA didn't. 3 years later, WIPA was gone. Youth then in Queensland kind of rocked our core in 2013-14 when Campbell Newman gets in, decides he wants to restructure arts funding, throws a wrecking ball through it. I was part of that process, as I'm sure a number of other people were in the room. By the time the dust had settled, by accident, it wasn't a structured, thought-through thing. By accident, they had defunded the entire Queensland youth arts sector. Youth Arts Queensland was defunded, it closed. We've lost all our peak bodies. Then in 2014, the Australia Council announced that it was going to undergo the biggest restructure of its funding policies since the Australia Council was started. On many levels, actually stupendously exciting and coming from a really great place. However, part of that was removing the Youth Program Fund. And the youth companies went, whoa, hang on. Key orgs have undergone this massive evolve or die period since 2008 that the youth art sector has not done. It's going to have a massive ramifications. We all started talking to each other a lot. We got together, we wrote a collective letter to Tony and Frank at the Australia Council, and a group of us got together and went and met with him. Jane, who's in the room, was there. Sarah Austin from St Martin's. Claire, who was Outback Youth Theatre at the time, was there. So we went and chatted, and we said, we're really, really concerned about what this is going to do to the youth art sector. They said, look, we've consulted, you're going to be okay. It's going to be looked after. We kept flagging it. They said, all right, they gave us some money. We got all of us together at Bundanon, all the funded youth companies, along with some other key players. There was a great company called Goat Track Theatre from the Gold Coast, and Lee Boswell, who runs an extraordinary company out of Cairns that she started on her own, the Young Company, and others came down. And we got Kathy Hunt in to talk about strategic planning and thinking for youth companies, because youth companies traditionally are shit at strategic planning. We're shit at strategic planning because we are all heart and vision, and we confuse values with goals. So we all put our values up going, this is why we're unique, this is why we're special. And when people are sitting down reading a whole bunch of these, they're like, you got 12 companies that are all saying unique, all doing exactly the same thing because we all have exactly the same values. So we talked about that. Then the following year, we had anyone shit at the fan. Brandis went through, everything went pear-shaped, the ramifications have come out. So during this we then started to go, well, what have we got? What have we got to demonstrate that youth arts is so powerful? Now what we have is truckloads of what Helen just put up, which is awesome, because we all have to assess everything that we do. So we've got all these amazing stories, but when you actually look at what we've got in terms of research, statistical data, we actually don't have a lot. The education sector has done some really interesting stuff, and great stuff to say, if you're engaged in the arts, you do better across all curriculum levels. If you're engaged in the arts, you are 3 times more likely to vote. This is a study that came out of the UK. You are twice as likely to volunteer for a community organisation. You're much more socially engaged. We have, so there's this kind of data. So then we start to sitting down, as we've all done in the last couple of years in our lobbying, to convince people. And you go, it improves self-confidence and teamwork, and they just glaze over. Right? It's been our experience. And ultimately, youth arts is kind of, youth companies are where we are. So we've been going, how do we get traction in this? How do we move forward? And how do we do something that kind of brightens the eyes and gets them understanding the actual kind of potential impacts of what we're doing? So one of the things that has come up over the last few years in conjunction with all of this, of course, is young people's mental health. The Red Cross's survey of 24,000 young people last year, for the first time ever, so they survey young people on one of the key issues in their lives. For the first time ever, mental health came up as a top 3 issue. In the developed world, it's kind of, you know, in Australia, the UK, Japan, I'm sure it's other countries, as the ones we've looked at, the key killer of young people aged between 9 and 19 is youth suicide. 1 in 4 young people in Australia, as we know, can be diagnosed with a mental health issue. 1 in 6 can be diagnosed with anxiety. The average age that people are starting to get diagnosed with anxiety is 16. The average age we're being diagnosed with depression in Australia is 24. 1 in 16 young people can be diagnosed with depression. Over 38% of young people identify body image as a major issue for their emotional health and well-being. So one of the things that we started to do, I can probably slow down now, get to there. So, we had a little bit of money left over from a program we've been running for a few years. So what we wanted to look at was what impact, if any, does youth arts have on young people's mental health? And if it's not anything, that's fine. We can put it in a bin and look at something else we do. If it's detrimental, okay, we need to adjust what we're doing to help it. And if it's beneficial, awesome, maybe that's something we can celebrate. So we engaged this group called Pattern Makers, who they specialise in art statistical data. They're extraordinary and wonderful to work with. And so we said to them, this is what we want to do. They came up with a methodology. We gave them our database and access to people. They surveyed 1,200 current and past participants of ATYP, and they had this kind of a 3-tiered approach. So there was a whole bunch that they did detailed interviews with, there was a whole bunch that they did kind of detailed questionnaires with, and there were a whole other bunch that they did broader surveying. When the results came back, we kind of said to them, we really didn't want you to justify why we existed. We want it to be, we need it to be something that can hold up. And they said, no, these are the statistics that we found from engagement. So in this report at the moment, I just want to acknowledge ATYP's philosophy is no different from any other youth arts company in this room. We don't do anything different or more special. I mean, it's bigger and it's older, so these findings will apply across. So one of the frustrating things about the report at the moment is that it's all about ATYP because they are our stakeholders. But so the next step is to remove ATYP from it and just talk about it more broadly and probably see if we can leverage broader support. However, what we found was young people, 89% of young people identified that participating in youth theatre activities enhanced their teamwork. 89% said it developed their self-confidence. 83% said it was a source of inspiration and motivation in their lives. 84% said it had a tangible, meaningful improvement in their interpersonal skills. 76% said it gave them the confidence to tell their story. And one of the most exciting ones, I think, 74% said it built their resilience in coping with challenges. 59% said it helped them improve their anxiety levels. And one of the interesting things about that, so when 59% we're like, oh, anxiety is so high, and we're really disappointed. We were presenting this at our strategic planning session that we had with board and staff and things earlier. Pat and Makers were presenting the report, and it was being facilitated by a psychologist. As you
Sorry.
Oh, am I there?
Yeah, we can keep going, and then we actually get into a session too, and I could hear all day, so I'm going to...
Oh, cool. No, that's great. I'm so sorry. So, yeah, anyway, it was 59%. The psychologist research was maxed out at the best feedback they got was 54% improvement. So what was really exciting about this is not programs addressing mental health. This is just people engaging in youth theatre, doing whatever we do. And so these are the benefits that we are delivering. And so we kind of feel like this is a potential to open a new form of conversation about other pots of money, health funding, community services, other things. Thank you. Sorry, Kate, that's great.